Welcome to CEO Sales Sessions. I'm Gazi, your host, former political staffer turned entrepreneur and founder of Sales Beyond Scripts, where I build CEOs whose sales feel effortless and profit becomes inevitable. I've spent years in the highest pressure rooms, both in politics and business, and I'm bringing you everything I learned straight to this mic. No fluff, no filler, just actionable steps, tough love, and big thinking alongside some of the sharpest CEOs in the game. Let's get to work. Welcome back to another episode. Today's a solo episode, and it's on a topic that I can get a little spicy about. And I'll tell you why. Because everyone on social media is playing into this game of more leads. Because we've been taught that more in equals more out. And I'm here to tell you that most times when I'm working with businesses, it's not that they actually need more leads. It's that they're lacking the system to nurture the ones that they already have. And for today's episode, I've got a few stories for you, okay? Because when I speak to clients and they tell me stuff, like this is the stuff that keeps me up at night. So here's the first story I want to tell you. I was working with a client who had been in the industry for many years, so definitely not a newbie, okay? It was a clinical style client, incredible business, incredible human. They had been serving upwards of 300 people who had come in for a trial service. Now, when I sat down with this client, one of the things that we thought we had to work on was discussing ways that we could generate qualified leads. Even the client told me that the leads they currently had, they weren't the right type of people and they needed people that were ready to buy. So at first I fell into that, okay? I was like, great, that's what we got to focus on. But after sitting down with that client and looking at their business and their model and looking at their CRM and talking about their sales pipeline, something became evident to me. And this isn't like a one-off case scenario. It's something I see way too often where entrepreneurs are straight up neglecting the community that they have. So they've paid for leads, they've hosted events, they've had masterclasses, so they've brought in qualified people. And once they have people in their community, in their CRM, in their sales ecosystem, that they treat them like shit. Like they don't even welcome them. They don't nurture that relationship. So that might be you. You might be falling into that trap where you feel like you need to create more content to get leads, that you need to pay for advertising to get the right people to see you. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on marketing. But oftentimes more marketing isn't the solution. And so what this episode is all about is around empowering you to look at your current community and to ask myself, how do I need to nurture the people that have already put their hands up, that have already come into my universe? And I want you to think about that for yourself. Do you actually have systems in place in your business that does what I like to call pipeline maintenance, that does check in with your people, that sends emails frequently, that talks on certain things over longer periods of time? Now, why is this important? Because the marketing has shown us that leads are needing anywhere between 8 to 12 different touch points to build meaningful trust. So 8 to 12 different meaningful touch points, even trust points. I said that now, it came out automatically. I love that. They are trust points. They're different points along this customer journey, this client journey, where we're offering value, we're building trust, and we're positioning ourselves as the expert over longer periods of time. Now, some of you might not even have this system, and it's your invitation to start. Now, some of you might be in a system where you only talk to your leads when you want to sell them something, when you want to launch something. You go back to your cold list that hasn't been nurtured, that hasn't been building that relationship. And you're like, oh, by the way, I'm selling this thing, I'm hosting this thing. So you're skipping all of these points of trust building and you're trying to get from intro to ecosystem to sales. And that's not the way the client journeys are working these days. So I want you to look at your current model and ask yourself, what are systems I can put in place that are reoccurring over longer periods of times? That's why email marketing is your friend. Because what email marketing gets to do for you is it builds a system once that does the work over longer periods of time. So, on my last episode that I just filmed, I had a guest expert, the founder of Chill Books, Jamie Monty. I was telling her, I'm filming this episode right after you leave. And she was saying, oh my God, I had an email sequence that I had since 2021. Now we're in 2026. And she's like, I just pulled the report on that nurture sequence that happens when, X person joins through X, Y, and Z. And that's been working since 2021. So what I love about a nurture sequence is you're building systems that build trust with people over longer periods of time. Now, one of the things that my team and I implemented last year was when I created the growth scorecard, which is my free audit that anybody could do under 3 minutes to show them where the gaps are across 6 different pillars of different departments, so to call it, of their business. So what we did was when I created that, let's call it lead magnet, which is a free or low ticket thing that brings people in to your ecosystem, into your universe, we automatically built out a sequence, an automated nurture sequence based on their response. So upfront, this was a lot of work. Like to build this infrastructure takes some time. By the way, I built this pre-AI days. So now by the way, the new expression is like Bob's your uncle. Now Bob's your uncle with AI because that's going to help you like bada bing, bada boom, build out these sequencing. I've been doing this pre-AI days. So when I'm looking at what is each nurture sequence doing, I'm not sending automated, boring sequences. Like I'm doing based on their current status in the pipeline, based on their answers of the sequence, based on what magnet they came through. We're sending them specific valuable content that's going to help them. So just to give you an idea, like that's a system I set up 2 years ago that continues to bring in qualified deal bookings for my team and I. Done once, continues the work while I sleep. That's what I talk about, working smarter, not harder, where it's like, look at the people that are already in your sequence now, in your email list, coming to your past events, maybe clients that you've had discovery calls with that haven't closed. That's what I call your acres of diamond, which is a story I want to tell you about. That acres of diamond, it's always been there. So don't always be looking outside for fresh leads, tiny, like shiny object syndrome of like more leads, more people, more discovery calls, which we love. But oftentimes we're looking for that outside of us and forgetting that there's already people in our system who have said yes. This discussion was actually inspired by this conversation from this success lesson that came out from Earl Nightingale. I used to be in a program with Bob Proctor, and he taught this in one of the programs called Lead the Field. And it was about a story of a farmer who lived on this property, and he was looking for diamonds. And he lived on this property and he was so unsatisfied about the property that he was on. And he thought it must be that there isn't any good in this farm. There must not be fertile soil. Let me look for this outside of me. Let me look for a new house with new grass, with new soil. And maybe that's going to be the solution to me finding and farming product. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this with you as entrepreneurs, we're not farmers, but you can get bits of this story where it's like, we're sometimes thinking, oh, I need the new offer. I need the new Instagram strategy. I need to be on TikTok. I need to be using Claude Cowork to create my content. We're always looking for these new ways to get the result that we're looking for. and we're not looking where we were. So the moral of the story with the farmer was he was so unsatisfied with the land that he had, and he wasn't willing to work with the land that he had, that he was like, I'm picking my stuff up and I'm moving. I'm going to go and buy a house on fertile soil. So what he did was he sold the house. A few months later, new dude comes to live. Dude's also a farmer. He goes, let me see what's under this land. Let me look at the soil that I have. Let me look at what I'm working with, what I've got here. As soon as he starts to dig, he realizes, oh my God, what's here? Guess what's there? It's the acres of frigging diamonds. So farmer number one was not looking at what he had. That soil was already working. If he just looked right underneath, he would realize that he was living on the acres of diamonds. Now, why I share this story with you, because when I think of your story about leads, you might be thinking you need more leads, but you're missing what you've already got. The people who have already said yes to you, who have paid, who have given their email address, who have booked a call with you before, have you nurtured them? Have you given time to see, maybe I've already got it here? Now, for some of you, you're going to be thinking, okay, well, what can I do with this? What does nurture really mean? Again, coming back to the stat that they're needing 8 to 12 touch points before they make a decision. So most founders, they're stopping at that first point. They post, they'll get a DM, they might answer it, then they never do the follow-up. And then they wonder why their sales feel inconsistent. So not all of these points, and I've written some ideas for you. It's like not all of these points need to be a sales conversation. Okay? So don't rush it to the sales. Most of you tell me you don't want to be salesy, but all you focus on is the salesy part. So when I'm telling you to think about the nurture, I'm thinking about the build up to the sale. I'm thinking about the welcome, the intro, the emails. You know, I build and nurture so many of my relationships using Instagram stories. That's one of my main nurture points, where on a weekly basis, I'm building those trust points that we talked about through Instagram stories. I'm following that up with DMs, with voice notes, with automated emails that I've built out because I've studied my sales journey. In fact, if that's new for you and you want to know a little bit more about that, check out my episode with Trevor Davis, because him and I talk about some of the sales journeys that we've built for clients and how emails that we've built once continue to bring profit over time and time again, because we've studied the sales journey and we know what to say to what people at the right time. And that's doing the work of 1 to 12, those trust points that I'm talking about with you. Even, I have a few upcoming sales calls with the CEO Growth Scorecard. I set that up in January. The calls are still coming up. So that's not just something I'm telling you to do. What I'm teaching you is based on my experience. So I'm telling you now, up front, there's infrastructure build that needs to happen for your sales pipeline. But I don't know about you, I love doing the work once and letting it ripple through and create impact and get book calls and close deals without even me having to lift a finger. Sometimes I don't even know the people. I had one client last week who booked with us. She came in through a collaboration of a speaking event. I didn't meet her, no DMs. She did then the CEO Growth Scorecard. Then she was like, your email spoke to me. Everything you were saying in your emails was exactly what I was thinking about in my mind. So again, I set that up last January. She booked with me in June and we had this call. So I want you to think about your current system and think about when leads come in, what are you doing for those 8 to 12 trust points? How are you nurturing your people? And I mean, think about it just as your home. If you invite someone to your house, when they come in, you show them around. You tell them a little bit about your family. You offer them a drink. You ask them a little bit about them. This is what relationship building is all about. So if you're in the business of like, you just want to deal and you just want to like cold DM and sell to them, I invite you to look at sales a little bit differently and not like this one and done sales process, rather building what I love, like the words that relate and sound ethical and authentic to me, are building client journeys, studying the client journey, the people that come work with me. So I understand what they're going through and I can create my touch points, my trust points based on what I know is going to be helpful for them as they go through, their top objection, their pain points. They want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. So what is it that I'm doing in that trust building process that's going to take that person from, hey, I just met you, to, you know what? I've binged your podcast. I've binged your episodes. I've seen the emails. I've done the audits. I've listened to your read your PDFs, listened to your webinars. That's what's building trust and closing high ticket deals in the digital online space these days. So I'm inviting you to take what you've heard from this episode and decide for yourself, what is one offer or segment of my pipeline or community that I've neglected that needs some love and nurture from me. So notice the words that I'm saying. I'm not your typical bro marketer to be like, where are the warmest leads to go sell to? For me, that never felt good. And that's why I was avoiding sales and avoiding building sales processes. But I like to think of it as, if someone's saying, I want to know more about this, and they're raising their hand to say, hey, you've got something that I think can help me, it's part of my responsibility to say, hey, come on in. Let me hold your hand. Let me walk you through this journey together. Let me educate you. Let me offer some value so that you know that you can trust me. So whatever that is for you, I want you to take a few minutes after this episode and ask yourself, based on my current ecosystem, where are some gaps and opportunities for me to build nurture sequences? So I want you to use your own critical mind. And then I also want you to strategize with AI, because sometimes AI is showing you your blind spots that you haven't thought of. So use that as your co-working opportunity and really get clear on, where is my biggest opportunity right now in my business for me to build out a nurture sequence where I don't feel like I'm cold selling to people. Rather, I feel I'm taking them on a journey where I'm providing value, sharing love, information, education, helping them overcome and work through their obstacles. And of course, positioning yourself as the go-to expert in your industry. So I would love to hear your takeaways. That's one of my favorite things, is like, get focused. So what are you taking away from today's episode? And can you come share it with me of what's that one thing that you're going to build out for your sales pipeline that's gonna be a nurture system for the people that you had, not a lead generation system. That's a conversation for another episode. But what is a lead nurture system that you can implement this week, this month, that will continue to nurture and qualify leads for you for years to come? So I'd love to hear your takeaway. As I always say, it's not about listening, it's about taking action. So if you want me to keep you accountable, come on over on Authentic Gazzy, send me a DM. I would love to hear from you. And by the way, just before I wrap up this episode, I wanted to ask you for a quick favor. I know many of you are coming back week after week to listen to this episode, and it means so much to me. Like, you have no idea. I started this podcast episode with no idea if anybody would ever tune in. And just last week, I got 60 downloads. So for a newbie podcaster, this is a big, big deal. So my ask of you is this: if you could head over to whatever platform you're listening on, if you're watching with us on YouTube, listening on Spotify or Apple, if you could leave a review for me, I don't know, 5-star, 4-star, whatever you want to give it. But if you could actually write how this podcast episode helped you, that would mean so much to me, because it would help us get this podcast into more people's ears and homes, which would ultimately help me achieve my goal of helping more female founders. So if you could do that for me, that would mean the world to me. And as Stephen Bartlett says, I'll continue doing my job, which is hopefully coming back week after week with more helpful episodes for you. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking the time to leave a review for me. And I will see you here next week on Tuesday for another great episode. We'll see you then. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I know as a CEO that time is your most valuable asset, so let's make it worth it. What's one thing that you're going to implement or embody today? Because listening without action is just entertainment. So DM me your takeaway on Instagram @AuthenticGazi. I want to hear it, and I promise you I will hold you accountable. And if this episode resonated, share it with a woman in your circle who needs to hear this. And if you haven't already, follow and subscribe so you never miss a Tuesday. I'll see you next week.